Since ancient times in Japan, people have perceived the presence of non-human beings in empty spaces and darkness. Some have sensed an imaginary existence, while others have experienced the boundary between life and death. It has emerged in the form of ancient Japanese ghosts and yokai, and has remained alive in various forms of art and culture. As part of global Japanese studies at Waseda University, we are conducting new forms of digital archive research in the field of media studies by merging traditional Japanese culture and the ideas behind them with cutting-edge digital technologies. Professor and director Minako Okamuro has been involved in archive research from various perspectives at the Theater Museum of Waseda University.
早稲田大学演劇博物館は、アジアで唯一の、そして世界でも稀有な演劇専門総合博物館なんです。演劇の資料というのは非常に幅広いので、古今東西の演劇資料100万点にも及ぶ、そういった数で収蔵しているような博物館なんです。そしてまたデジタルアーカイブにも非常に力を入れておりまして、2001年というのはウィキペディアができた年ですけれども、その2001年からデジタルアーカイブコレクションを公開しています。これとっても早かったと思っています。博物館というのが、かつては唯一無二の貴重な、博物資料を、誇るような場所だったと思うんですね。だけど、デジタルデータにすることによって、その博物館自体の存在意義も変わっていきますし、その資料の、あり方自体も変わっていくと思うんです。デジタルデータにすることで、例えば加工したりさまざまな利活用の範囲も増えていきますし、例えばその若い人たちが何でしょうね、二次的に創作するような、そういうふうな資料にもなっていきます。またデジタルデータにすることで、その伝統的な資料にも新しい生命を吹き込むことができますし、またそのデータの扱いが非常に簡単なので、外部の研究機関とか、博物館とかいろんなところと連携していくことが可能になります。それによって博物館自体が社会的に開かれた存在になっていくのではないかと考えています。幽霊や妖怪って、例えば生と死とか、存在と不在とか、そういった2つのものの間にある、いわばグレーゾーンですね。そういったところに生息するものだと思います。そういった曖昧な場所に生息するものを、非常に日本的な想像力が生み出してきたと思うんですね。で、そういったものをアーカイブしていくことによって、そういう日本的な想像力の豊かさ、深さに触れていただくっていうことと、あと私たちいろんな二元論に絡め取られてしまいがちだと思うんですね。で、そういった二元論を超えていくような、そういった豊かな想像力を育む、そういったことの一助にもなればと思っています。
No is one of the traditional Japanese performing arts. It also serves as a place to invite audiences to another world, evoking the imagination of the invisible, especially in the dream no, called Mugen no. The actor wears a no mask and becomes a non-human, such as a ghost, god, or a spirit of plants. The higher the historical value of the no mask, called omote, the more difficult it is to access the actual product. Even if photographs are saved as research materials, it will be difficult to archive the subtle changes in facial expressions and volume of the mask that change depending on the angle and lighting during performance. We converted this no mask into 3D data using a unique scanning technology and published it on the web so that it can be viewed from various angles by moving the mouse. In addition, by moving the light source and changing the color, it is possible to reproduce the appearance of the flame swaying on the no mask at Takigi no which is held outdoors on summer nights around a bonfire. This is not the only new form of archiving at the Theater Museum. We also digitized Yōkai paintings using high definition and fused animation technology. In the animation of the Kabuki curtain, Shin Tomiza Yōkai Hikimaku, drawn by the genius painter Kawanabe Kyosai in 1880, the yokai appeared to leap exuberantly as if they were alive. We are attempting to add new value through digital technology while archiving this yokai curtain. Furthermore, yokais are not just ghosts. They have continued to exist as a manifestation of the potential fear and anxiety that people have and the awe of the invisible. Professor Dominic Chen conducts research from the aspects of technology and media in the studies of media, body, and image at the School of Culture, Media, and Society, Waseda University. Nukabot, produced by Professor Chen. This involves the fusion of traditional Japanese food, fermented nukazuke, and AI technology. Although fermenting microbes are invisible, they change their state immediately depending on the environment. Professor Chen gave fine fermenting microbes a cute body with the yokai motif. Nukabot narrates the state of the fermenting microbes through the medium of the body. Nukabot is a new type of technology media that enables translational communication between fermenting microbes and humans.
I love making and eating traditional fermented food, and I have been working to design a system to communicate with the invisible fermenting microbes of a nukadoko. Nukadoko is a traditional technique to ferment pickles using a mixture of rice bran, salt, and water that is placed within a wooden or enamel bucket. This wet mass of rice bran becomes a bed for a symbiotic culture of lactic acid bacteria, yeast, and other microbes. The resulting sour pickles are called nukazuke. And in general, humans have to take care of the nukadoko by stirring its rice bran every day with their own hands. When you forget to stir the rice bran, the nukadoko easily tends to decay, and in the past I have spoiled my own nukadoko a few times. In such times, I wanted to become a better carer of my own nukadoko. So I devised a system that translates the evolving status of its fermenting microbes into human language. Instead of using traditional information interaction techniques such as displaying numbers and charts, I wanted to create a more intimate relationship between the human carer and the microbes. To do so, I began researching yokai folklore, which is a fascinating field in its own right. Yokais are said to be representations of the boundary between the human realm and the natural world. Interestingly, any natural phenomenon or human artifact can become a yokai. An artificial object possessed by a spirit is called a tsukumogami, which designates the process of the morphing of normal utensils into yokai that have survived a few hundreds of years. And yokai and tsukumogamis are thought to interact with humans by speaking human languages. So we employed a yokai-inspired design as a symbol of the liminality between the human and the invisible microbes to fabricate the nukabot. The yokai metaphor is an important cultural element that helps us create an emotional connection with the microbes. An interesting finding of this project is that talking to microbes on a daily basis through our nukabot can increase our subjective attachment to them. I believe the whole history of the representations of ghosts, spirits, and yokai can inspire our design of new technological media for connecting us humans with the modern human world.
While certain yokai imitate animals and real-life creatures, some yokai paintings symbolize the fear experienced by humans after encountering the invisible something. This is the threat of plague and a pandemic. The outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, which affected the entire world, led to the cancellation or postponement of many performing arts in Japan. At the Theater Museum of Waseda University, we examined these canceled or postponed plays, collected materials such as flyers, posters, programs, and scripts, and attempted to bridge the future without creating a blank history. These materials were exhibited at the Lost in Pandemic, Theater Adrift Expressions New Horizons show and received a great deal of attention. It is still open to the public as an online exhibition. In addition, the Theater Museum archives recorded footage of stage performances held by theater companies in Japan, and in March 2021, opened the website of the Japan Digital Theater Archives. It revived past theater and revitalized the theater world suffering from COVID-19. Even if there are no actors on the stage, the urgent voice of the people involved in the stage was archived and the traces left in the materials. This extensive archive of lost theater with vast resources and testimonies of the people involved was organized to show those in the future what the people in the present thought and did during the pandemic. Our bodies will eventually decay. However, the words of those who live in the present can be conveyed over time. Type Trace, an art and science project led by Professor Dominic Chen, is also a new possibility for text archiving. Last Words, Type Trace, asks people to write a will and reenact their process of typing. As the sentences appear into the screen at various tempos and rhythms, the writer's personality and life is naturally evoked. Last Words, Type Trace, attempts to archive the time lived by each individual writer by recording the typing process as is.
I think this project can be considered an ethnographic archive of modern people's view of life and death. By reenacting the processes of people's writing very intimate messages addressed to their loved ones, we gave room to better imagine the intentionality of the writer. The relationships described in the text are quite diverse. The addresses ranging from parents to children, brothers to sisters, friends to lovers, and sometimes to the deceased ones. When you contemplate the processes of these texts, you can feel and imagine the values each writer has cherished throughout their lives. For instance, this archive might be discovered after 100 years from now, and the people of the future would have a better understanding over time than just reading static texts. I think information is not only about objective facts, but it also serves to record and transmit subjective emotions. My research question that motivates me is, how can we exchange deeper feelings and thoughts as information technology is becoming more and more ubiquitous? One person who watched this installation explained to us her feeling. She says something like, while everyone was writing their message and imagining their own death, she could only feel that everyone in this space was alive. Another person told us that she felt a great deal of relief when watching this text unfold, and that feeling rarely happened when using social networking services. When we look back our own history, we realize that each generation has recorded the zeitgeist of its time using whatever available media. But we shouldn't forget that we can also discuss how we want to archive our own culture and our own existence, and that we can design new media accordingly to our wish.
博物館って、一種のメディアだと思うんですね。つまり、うちだったら演劇博物館なので、演劇という営み自体、そしてそれに関わる人たちの、思いとか記憶とか、そういったものも含めて、文化の総体を未来に伝えていく、そういうメディアだと思うんです。で、そうした時に、コロナ禍の中で演劇界は大変な打撃を被ったわけです。だけど、今回のパンデミックが収まっても、またいつか同じようなパンデミックが襲来するかもしれません。で、その時のために今私たちがどういうふうな危機の中にあって、その中でどんな発明をしたり発見をしたり、そしてどんな思いでそれを経験したか、そういったことをきちんとアーカイブすることで、未来に伝えていきたい。そうすることで、未来にまた私たちがこういった目にあった時に、それを乗り越えていくための、一つの、手がかりになればというふうに思っています。
In today's world of repeated consumption and forgetting, is it possible to achieve this Japanese culture of imagining various things from absence? We intend to preserve the spirituality of traditional Japanese culture while making full use of digital technology. We will continue this research for the next 100 to 200 years, even after we no longer exist.